What happens when a teacher becomes a killer and a medical student builds a murder empire not out of rage, but with cold logic and surgical precision? Which one is more dangerous? The man with blood on his hands, or the one whose hands stay clean while bodies pile up? Stay with me until the end of this video. Welcome to Red Dossier.
Before we move on to the next part, please give me a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for listening.
What do a school teacher and a medical student have in common with some of the deadliest gang operations in the Western Hemisphere? At first glance, nothing. Ernesto Miranda spent his early adulthood working at a public school in Soyapango, a crime-infested suburb of San Salvador. He wore track pants and whistle lanyards. He ran drills, kept kids off the street, and was known for encouraging troubled students to stay out of gangs. His students remember a calm, firm man. But there was something in his stillness, too composed, too alert, like he was always thinking several steps ahead about something darker than sports. Luis Rodriguez, on the other hand, was the son of immigrants. He entered the U.S. legally as a child, grew up in south-central Los Angeles, and earned his way into a pre-med track at UCLA. Teachers described him as gifted, but emotionally detached. He rarely spoke in class, but his lab reports were flawless. He had a sharp mind and sharper silence, like he was listening for things others didn't hear. Two men, two paths, but both turned away from the professions that were supposed to define them, teaching and medicine, and became architects of violence and control. By the time authorities captured them, Miranda was considered one of the central organizers of MS-13's command structure in El Salvador. His name appeared in hundreds of case files across a decade of gang killings. According to internal Salvadoran police memos leaked in 2019, Miranda trained dozens, possibly hundreds, of teenage recruits, many of whom went on to carry out executions and disappearances. Rodriguez, in contrast, left no blood at crime scenes. He never touched a weapon. He didn't have to. He designed encrypted communications systems, managed digital laundering operations, and coordinated multi-state drug logistics for the 18th Street Gang. His capture in 2020 marked one of the largest cyber gang busts in U.S. history. And yet, many Americans have never heard his name. While Miranda operated in the open, commanding loyalty with fear, building military-style obedience among young soldiers, Rodriguez thrived in the shadows. He didn't yell. He typed. He didn't mark territory with guns. He moved silently through VPNs, proxies, and burner networks. And yet, both men shared something chilling. They turned tools of hope into machinery of death. Miranda once inspired young people to stay in school, only to later recruit them into kill squads disguised as neighborhood protection. Rodriguez studied how to save human lives, then used the same logic to optimize a criminal supply chain that fed off overdoses and social collapse. What drove them? Was it ideology, trauma, power, or was it simply opportunity? Two intelligent men who realized they could bend broken systems to their will. Criminologists describe them differently. Miranda is seen as a tactical enforcer, someone who weaponized trauma and loyalty, who operated like a low-level insurgent commander. Rodriguez is referred to as a network manipulator, a rare case of a high IQ offender who blurred the lines between organized crime and technological terrorism. Both are dangerous, but in entirely different ways. Miranda turns people into weapons. Rodriguez turns systems into weapons. One is visceral, the other calculated. And between them lies a larger question, one that makes this story more than just true crime. Who do you fear more? Someone who kills you with his hands, or someone who kills you without ever touching you? That's where we begin. Stay with me until the end of this video. Welcome to Red Dossier. Ernesto Miranda was born into systemic failure. His father was murdered during the Salvadoran Civil War when Miranda was just a boy. He grew up in Soyapango, a place where police were outnumbered. Justice was a rumor, and survival meant picking a side. By age 19, he was already affiliated with MS-13. But it wasn't until his mid-20s, while working as a part-time gym teacher, that he began grooming young men, not for sports, but for gang warfare. According to a 2015 Salvadoran police report, Miranda coordinated over 300 killings within 5 years, though his own hands were rarely stained. His method was indoctrination. Recruit at 13, loyalty tested by 15, and execution capable by 17. He created a hierarchy built not just on fear, but on warped honor codes, codes that mirrored militarized doctrine more than street crime. Luis Rodriguez took a different path, to darkness. He migrated legally from Tijuana to Los Angeles with his family at age 10. His academic performance led him into UCLA's pre-med program. But systemic neglect in his community left him disillusioned. He witnessed ICE raids, police brutality, and the opioid epidemic ravage neighborhoods like his own. He dropped out in his second year, claiming in an anonymous manifesto, later recovered by investigators, "The system teaches us how to fix wounds, but it does nothing to prevent the bullets." Rodriguez didn't create killers. He created infrastructure. A 2019 FBI cybercrime task force report revealed he developed an encrypted messaging system that allowed 18th Street lieutenants to coordinate supply routes, monitor surveillance blind spots, and even manage financial laundering through cryptocurrencies. The DEA later confirmed his network facilitated over $120 million in illicit drug transactions in less than 3 years. Both men shared one trait. They were architects, not spontaneous offenders, but planners of multi-layered, scalable systems of organized crime. Yet their motivations diverged sharply. Miranda acted out of vengeance and social rage. His leadership style mimicked insurgency movements, relying on psychological conditioning and territorial violence. Rodriguez, however, operated like a corporate strategist gone rogue. His aim was not domination through blood, but efficiency through invisibility. Their impact was devastating. Miranda's operations led to mass internal displacement in El Salvador, with over 250,000 people fleeing gang-controlled zones between 2010 and 2018. Rodriguez's influence contributed to a 10-fold increase in fentanyl flow through Southern California corridors between 2017 and 2021, according to the U.S. Drug Threat Assessment. But even architects make mistakes. Miranda's downfall came when a young recruit, arrested for a weapons charge, turned informant. That led to Operation Hammer Hand, a joint military police action that arrested 6,000 suspected MS-13 members within 72 hours. Rodriguez's mistake was digital. A flaw in his custom encryption software allowed federal agents to trace metadata from seemingly untraceable messages. He was arrested in a South LA apartment, unarmed, surrounded by hard drives and empty Red Bull cans. Their stories entered the public sphere in different ways. Miranda became the face of Central America's gang crisis. His mugshot circulated in anti-gang campaigns from Honduras to Guatemala. Rodriguez became a ghost story in cybersecurity briefings, a cautionary tale of what happens when someone with technical genius and no moral anchor decides to build his own system of justice. They were not products of madness, but of method. And that is what makes them unforgettable. Both Ernesto Miranda and Luis Rodriguez were sentenced to life without parole, but their trials revealed more than guilt. They exposed two contrasting blueprints for how educated men can weaponize their intelligence. Miranda's court proceedings were publicized across Latin America. Witnesses described how he transformed teenagers into soldiers of the street. Psychologists testified to his use of desensitization techniques, gradual exposure to extreme violence to normalize killing. His sentence, handed down by the Supreme Court of El Salvador, was based on a national anti-terrorism law passed in 2016, aimed at prosecuting MS-13 leaders as war criminals. His conviction marked one of the first times in Latin American legal history where a gang leader was sentenced under international humanitarian frameworks, not just criminal codes. Rodriguez's trial was quieter, but no less significant. The U.S. Department of Justice labeled him a cybercriminal kingpin with real-world casualties. Forensic analysts presented over 700 gigabytes of encrypted communications, financial ledgers, and drone surveillance logs. He was tried under the Racketeer, Influenced, and Corrupt Organizations (RICO) Act, as well as under the Patriot Act's Cyber Terrorism Clause, one of only 4 non-state actors to be prosecuted under that statute in the past 2 decades. But the question remains, who posed the greater threat? Statistically, Miranda's operations resulted in a higher body count. His gang directly accounted for more homicides per year than any other criminal group in Central America between 2012 and 2017. The region saw over 60 homicides per 100,000 people during peak years, with MS-13 implicated in nearly half of gang-related killings in El Salvador. Rodriguez, on the other hand, orchestrated transnational drug movements and laundered tens of millions, indirectly contributing to the opioid crisis in the US, which in 2020 alone caused over 93,000 overdose deaths, according to the CDC. While he didn't pull the trigger, his systems enabled countless deaths, far beyond gang borders. In essence, Miranda was visceral. Rodriguez was systemic. One operated like a warlord, the other like a CEO of chaos. The former left corpses in alleys, the latter left no bodies, only waves of destruction hidden behind spreadsheets and code. And still, they were both created, not born, by environments that valued survival over empathy, dominance over dialogue. Their choices were horrifying, but their evolution is what makes them most disturbing. One learned how to kill with a knife. The other learned how to kill with a server. So who was more dangerous? It depends on what scares you more. A man who stares into your eyes as he orders your death, or a man who doesn't need to see your face at all. These aren't just stories of 2 criminals. They are indictments of 2 systems, broken institutions that let intelligent, capable individuals fall through the cracks and resurface as architects of death. And if we fail to ask why that keeps happening, we're not just observers. 2 men, 2 minds. One horrifying truth, Intelligence without conscience is a weapon more dangerous than any gun. So who would you fear more? The one who kills you face to face, or the one who kills you without ever being in the room? Let's talk in the comments. I want to hear your take. If this story made you think, even just a little, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. There's more coming, much more. This is Red Dossier. Truth, no filter, evil, fully exposed.